So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Norrington Reeves. I'm the CEO of the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and I will be your host today for this small group session. We have with us three small business owners. I shouldn't say small to medium-sized business owners and operators, and we're going to talk today about the business case for second chance hiring people who are or have been formerly incarcerated. So first on our panel is Conrad Burnett, who is the general manager for Fat Ice here in Chicago, former CEO of Just Ice. Also, we have Pete Leonard, who is the founder and roast master general at I Have a Bean, and Stephen Taylor, who is the business development manager for the Will Group. So I just want to level set us for a few moments. So, and just share a couple of sobering data points as we talk about the business case for why we should hire the formerly incarcerated. So first of all, 70 million people in the United States have an arrest record. It's just an arrest record. 19 million have actually been convicted of a felony. And so with incarceration comes a 40% increased likelihood of poverty, a 50% less likelihood to receive a job interview, and we have over 5 million children in the United States who have at least one parent that has been incarcerated. So when you talk about this population, the reach is far and wide. And in my opinion, it is a group of people that we can ill afford to just discard and cast aside because it's a significant impact on our labor force in this country. So with that in mind, we're going to open up to our panelists. And what I'm going to have each of them do is introduce themselves, their company, and and then I'll go back and have them talk a little bit about first chance hiring at their particular organizations. So why don't we start with Pete?
Oh, you're going to start with me. Okay. Great.
You're the first square in my
I see. I get how this works. All right. I'm Pete Leonard. I am the founder, and you heard roast master of a little company out in Wheaton, Illinois, actually just kitty corner from the Will Group. I can look out my window over here and see their building. We are a coffee roasting company, and we formed 12 years ago for one purpose. Okay, two, roasting great coffee and employing post-prison people. That's what we do. So I've got, at any given time, 5 to 8 full-time employees and half a dozen or so part-time employees. So,
and what percentage do the formerly incarcerated comprise of your labor force, Pete?
So that's a good question. It varies from hiring season to hiring season. If you look at the people that work inside our roasting plant, so our key people, it's right now 100%. That's what we do. Now, I will tell you, while that's a great number, and when I started the business, I thought 100% is what we want all the time. The reality is I don't really want 100% all the time. And for this reason, I think it's important, and it's proven to be important for post-prison people to be able to rub shoulders in a work environment with people who haven't been to prison. It's good for both groups. The primary impact it has on people who have not been to prison is they start to understand that just because somebody's been to prison doesn't mean they're any different, that they don't have the same hopes, goals, and dreams and families and all that anybody else does. And so it normalizes what somebody sees as it used to be other, now you're not. Yeah. So,
Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself and the Will Group and your focus on post-incarceration hiring.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. And Pete, I love that. I'm gonna have to make sure I'm swinging by next time I'm in the Wheaton office. So my name's Steve Taylor. I'm on the business development team for the Will Group. I see a lot of familiar faces on this call. Kendi was actually at our new facility in K-Town on the west side of Chicago this week, as well as representation from the Chicago Cook Partnership. So really excited to continue our collaboration and see you all today. The Will Group is a family-owned and operated business. We've been active in the Chicagoland area for 30 plus years. The Will Group actually consists of 5 distinct entities that make up the family of companies. We have Lighting Solutions of Illinois, which is a manufacturer's rep that specializes in state-of-the-art solutions for municipal infrastructure. We have Twig Technologies, which is a GIS software technology. We have Electrical Resource Management, which is project management, value-added resale of lighting-related products. Lines View Manufacturing, which is lighting, utility component, and solar panel manufacturing. And then we also have Industrial Electric Supply, which is an electrical distributor of equipment to utility, construction, commercial and industrial markets. So, while we can certainly take some time, maybe as follow-up to dig into what each of these companies do, I think, the mission, that really drives us, is sort of captured in some words from our chairman. Really, I've heard this in some of the other panels, about these leadership themes cascading down. And for us, as a company, our top priority is providing jobs to local residents. That's why we're intentional about, being located on the west side of Chicago, previously having locations at Harrison and Laramie, 99th and Cottage Grove, Polk and Fitzpatrick, now in the North Lawndale neighborhood. And we believe that by creating these manufacturing jobs that come with good pay, above minimum wage, good benefits, good working conditions, these are the keys to growing the middle class and the aggregate demand that's needed to power the economy. By creating this social capital, the communities do begin to change, but you have to be intentional about it. And that helps to create an ecosystem that we, I think, as residents of the city of Chicago, state of Illinois, can be proud of. The manufacturing jobs are not just about driving economic growth, though that's a big part of it. They're also, the vehicle through which economic growth is broadly shared and helps to raise the living standards across the city, not just in these communities.
Thank you. Conrad, tell us a bit about Just Ice and Fat Ice, and about your philosophy with respect to hiring formerly incarcerated.
All right, sure. Here at Fat Ice, we make custom craft cocktail ice for all of Chicago and Chicagoland area. I've been with Fat Ice not that long because we just switched over from Just Ice. I became CEO here, and I am a two-time felon myself. So I look for people like me, people that are hungry, people that want the job and that are treated respectfully, and just giving somebody a second chance when someone gave me one. So, I'm a regular guy. I just made bad decisions as a youth. So, but I'm still a good worker. I'm still intelligent. I still do everything everybody else does. So that's how I look at everybody else, and that's why I give the chance to someone gave me one. Yeah.
Conrad, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. I'm not sure if you got on your headphones or if you can. Oh, okay. And by the way, you all, the reason he's dressed like he's cold is because he's cold in the ice production. So I want to talk about this. I want to dive a little deeper. Like, you can't drop a bomb like that, Conrad, and say, I'm a two-time felon as a young adult, and not expect a little bit of follow-up there. So I'm going to probe and prayerfully not make you feel uncomfortable. So you talked about wanting people like you who are hungry. Expand on that a little bit for our participants.
All right. So what I mean by hungry, like me, people that have employment barriers, they take their job more seriously because it's hard to find another one. They'll come on time, they'll do their job, they won't really get a lot of feedback. Sometimes they come with extra barriers, like I have to go to a court case, I have to do this, I have to do that. I have to be home at a certain time, on the band or something. So it's just working around all those barriers with them, so I can give them a better chance of having a successful life. but I like the hungry ones because they work. And most people that get out of that situation are hungry because I know
And the hungry ones also, because you've given them an opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, they also demonstrate a level of loyalty to the organization. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I have, oh, well, I ain't saying the name. It's about 2 people here with felonies. It was 3. And those are the ones that are on time every day. That I don't have to tell them to do the work. They already know what has to be done. They go straight to it. They always ask for something else they can do. And they always, look out. If I need extra things done, they'll be ready to help because I was able to help them.
Stephen and Pete, talk about your experience in that same vein.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, we're a little bit different than a lot of organizations. We, our primary workforce is post-prison people. And before this, I worked at back then, a Big 8 accounting firm. And, I experienced the same level of dedication in the people that I hire now that I did when I was working in the technology department, one of the technology departments at a Big 8 technology and accounting company. People are very dedicated to work, to doing good work. And everybody here, in fact, it's a trust thing, right? What I was given when I worked at the Big 8 company is essentially the key to the building. I can come and go when I want. There were many times we worked, the entire weekend, 40 hours straight working, that kind of crazy stuff. And I've found that it's important to give the same level of trust to all of my employees that I got when I was at this other big company. And so everybody who works here has the same key to the building that I do. We don't track time. We pay salaries, not just hourly wages for part-time people that are, doing things like working the farmer's market for us on a Saturday. And those are mostly college kids. But all of my full-time employees have the same level of access to this business and its assets that I do. So giving trust is one of those key things. We employ from all over Chicagoland, and Conrad, you talked about dedication, people, coming to work, and you can depend on them. It's the same thing here. I had a guy who worked for us for about a year before he went and got his CNC license. Now he's working down in North Carolina. He walked to the bus in Chicago, took the bus to the L, took the L to the train station, and then took the metro train out here to Wheaton, and then walked here from the train station. It took him an hour and 40 minutes on a good day to get here. And he was always the first person. He was here at 5:30 in the morning, ready to work. And it's that level of dedication that I see in all of my employees, which I love. And you're right, they're hungry. There are very few people or businesses that are willing to, quote, take a chance and hire them. And when they find somebody willing to give them that chance, they are all in, which I love.
I love it. Stephen, before I get to you, Craig has had his hand up, and Craig, I apologize. I can't see. I think they have Matt as sort of the room master, if you will. So he's getting the notice, but please, if I overlook you all, it's not intentional. So Craig, your question?
Well, Will can certainly, Stephen can certainly talk, but I wanted to ask Conrad a question, being that he's found gainful employment as an employer who is looking to hire second chance, right? And you said you look for people like yourself. And I think one of the barriers is employers don't know the right questions to ask. And how do you identify the right individual? Because I think what the stigma, and like many stigmas or biases, they arise out of, a pattern of behavior or whatnot, right, wrong, or indifferent, that how do you know somebody's really ready to make that commitment? It's, you can liken it to somebody who says, oh, I'm going to stop smoking, right? And, 6 months later, they're smoking again. Well, employers, I think, are the challenge they have is if that individual decides to commit another crime 6 months later, it's a little bit different narrative, right? So what questions do you, or what advice do you have to employers to share that, what questions can we ask to identify that? Because I think it's a great opportunity in an untapped workforce. And I agree with you. People are hungry. And I think if you give them the chance, as Pete said, they'll rise to the level.
All right, so there is no question. The whole reason of having the question is the reason why people that are felons don't get hired. The main thing you got to do is just give them a chance. It's only the chance. If I didn't have a job, I might be still doing what I was doing. I got a job, so I ain't got to do that. I ain't got to do anything that I used to. So asking me questions and it's not gonna help. I need a chance to get the money. And if you don't know where to find them, you just go to somewhere like Growing Home. Growing Home is a place where you can get people that graduated through Growing Home, which are a lot of people with employment barriers. And if they graduate, they're already ready to start a new life.
Stephen, I was going to ask you to jump in, and then Craig, I'll come back and talk a little bit about CBOs, community-based organizations on the ground that can support. Go ahead, Stephen.
So Conrad, we are absolutely on the same page. The dollars have to be there for people. So when we talk about employment, I like to make sure that we're putting on viable, sustainable economic, in front of that as well, because if you actually look at the breakdowns of what a living wage is, those numbers are very, very interesting. And a lot of times, if that's not being delivered on, you're not going to get the same type of commitment, that you might get, if you were talking, with about a higher paying position, where you're going to get that investment from an individual that's based on the employment opportunity. And Craig, to your question, I want to throw in, because we've got so many great organizations on the panel right now, like the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development, Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, KRA, Westside American Job Center, DCEO. These are all resources that we as an organization have actively engaged, which have helped us to add to the list of questions that we're asking folks, whether they're reentering or not. But also has helped us to expand, our search to, folks who are, English as a second language, peoples with disabilities, and making sure that we're not being exclusive, in how we're going about our search and development of workforce, because we are hiring. Karen, to the question, for our headquarters, which is based in Wheaton, again, we had to be intentional about where we installed our manufacturing and assembly facility, and that's in the heart of Lawndale. In doing that, we want to hire directly from the community. So there's that intentionality again. But with that, I'd say on an average day, we'd see about 30 to 40% of the people on our floor that are folks who have re-entered, but when it comes to, retention, when it comes to, the questions, which are very real around, punctuality, being accountable, showing up on time, those are still very, real conversations that do have to happen, whether you're re-entering or not. And I think that, one of the solutions, certainly not the only one, has to do with culture and leadership. So, when you have a CEO like Conrad, when you have someone like Pete, who understands, the value of employing, those who are reentering and how that impacts the cycle of recidivism, and also how it impacts your bottom line, you end up with a different culture. So I can't really. I can't understate the value of really investing in that cultural element and making sure that people understand why things are happening and why they're structured certain ways.
So one of the things that I typically talk to employers about is the focus on competence and doing the competence-based interview questions, not the what kind, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Which was really popular when I was interviewing, years ago. But really around understanding the individual's aptitude for the type of work that you need them to do, and or there are a number of skills that I think employers don't recognize that lots of Black and brown folks from low income communities, or just folks from low income communities, period, have, such as persistence and resilience and perseverance and an ability to be really creative and innovative and sort of make something out of nothing. And so questions designed to elicit that are more important than the sort of check the box routine questions that folks typically resort to. Pete, I'd be curious to hear your experience around how you suss out that hunger.
Yep, that's a good question. And I tell you what, I've learned a lot over the last 12 years, and I do it differently today than I did 12 years ago when I just started, and I knew one person who had been to prison, and he was my brother-in-law right here. So yeah, things have changed. We've employed more than 60 post-prison people since we started, and I've interviewed hundreds of post-prison people. And I can't hire all of them. Not all of them are actually ready to be hired. And so having partners who can help sort of set a gate that's appropriate for your organization, this is what we're looking for. I don't have a lot of that. There's not a lot of organizations that we depend on for that part of the work. We're just down the street from the DuPage County Courthouse. Most of the judges over there know us. Parole officers in this town know us. We get referrals from those groups, of people all the time. And then, of course, anytime we post a job, we get far more applicants than we can deal with. But the thing that I tell everybody that I interview, and we try to interview every single person who submits an application, it's really two things that I'm looking for, and it's honesty and dependability, those two things. So I tell them, what I expect from you, I'm going to give you. If you have any question at all about any aspect of this business, if I know the answer, I'm going to tell you. There's nothing hidden, and I expect the same from you. And what I need to hear from them, and again, this is an experience thing, is somebody ready to work? Are they really ready to put that life behind? If it was conscious choices, maybe it was just a mistake. In fact, most of the time I've discovered it's really a mistake, an error in judgment as a youth that got them in trouble, and that does not at all mark them as an adult, and it shouldn't. But it's this: do you own your story? Do you own what you did? Are you at a place where you can say, that's the old me, this is the new me, and I've put these things in place to make sure that I'm not going to do that again, right? If they don't have that understanding, if they still think, if they present in a way that says, if you do the wrong thing, if you talk to me the wrong way, or if the door's locked when I get here, even though I have a key, whatever it is, we feel like we've got to walk on eggshells to make sure they don't commit another crime, they're not in the place where they need to be to work. Now, fortunately, that's a very small percentage of the people that we talk to. And then from a dependability standpoint, and that's really just this: do you do what you say you're going to do? If you tell me that you're going to be here at 8 a.m. for your first interview, are you here for your first interview at 8 a.m. or are you late? And if you're late for your first interview, you're not hungry enough to actually want to work and be a good employee here. We're so small that everybody has to pull their own weight and more. It's not like, when I was working at that massive company of 68,000 people, you can hide, right? You can be incompetent at your job for a long time and stay in the weeds. So that isn't the case here. So The rest of my employees and our families depend on you doing what you say you're going to do. It's important for everybody here. So it's just asking questions along those lines to make sure, and this gets a little bit to Craig, how do you know as an employer if you're hiring the right guy or not, or the right gal or not? I will say this from a statistic standpoint, most of the, so stats I read on an MIT study on this, 81% of people who commit a crime, go to prison and get out, they're only there one time, 81%. Most of the people that you're going to interview who've been to prison, it's a one mistake thing, and it's not a life that they're looking to go back to. It's a mistake they're trying to recover from. You know, those of us who live outside, we make a mistake, we get a chance to learn from it and do better. Unfortunately, post-prison people, they make a mistake and it might get them back into prison instead, and it ends up being a lifelong sentence that needs to be changed. So I'm sorry, I got into the weeds on some things.
No, it's okay. Thank you. So, you know, two big takeaways for me, Craig, I would share. One is the demonstration of personal responsibility, and the other is intrinsic motivation. Stephanie had a question.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing the stories. It's really great to hear. You know, you've been talking a lot about how you get to the point of hiring and what you have to do, and really the practices that can come into play to be able to hire a second chance employee. But I'd love to hear then what comes next and how do you retain? You know, you talk in the nonprofit that I work with, we have some second chance employees, and you talk about mistakes, and sometimes mistakes aren't just mistakes that you end up back in prison, but we're finding that when an employee makes a mistake, they've had a kind of a flight tendency, and it's sort of like, it's okay, you can make a mistake and you can still have your job. And so I'd love to hear from you, you know, what you've had to do kind of beyond what's business as normal to help, you know, mentor your employees, providing mental health support and trauma-based support for employees as well. I mean, that's a big thing at Corporate Coalition that we're working at with companies. So if you could share some of that, that would be great.
So I'll open it up to any of you. Stephen, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Stephanie. I think right, there's not a silver bullet. You know, when we talk about these things, I think obviously, you know, communication, you know, and understanding, you know, the different types of, you know, communities that folks are coming from. I mean, I know at our West Side facility, we have folks that are coming, you know, a few blocks, and we also have folks that are coming from the far South Side. So, you know, and so with that reality, I think that, you know, there's got to be an open, you know, dialogue and approach to addressing, you know, challenges when they do happen. And you also, I think it benefits to have a culture of understanding, you know, and using, you know, instances where something may have went left instead of right as being teachable moments and learning experiences. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, the realities for people who are reentering are really stark. You know, when you talk about, you know, numbers aside, obviously, you know, let's assume that the pay rate is correct. You know, it can be upwards of 50% of people that are reentering, you know, won't find employment, you know, for up to a year after they, you know, have been released. And then at that point, you know, can make as much as 40% less on the dollar. So there's ambition to be in these spaces. But there has to also be, you know, a structure and a culture, mentorship, career pathways, certifications from a professional development standpoint that help people to set goals and understand that, hey, I'm not just going to be standing in this place 6 months or a year from now. I'm going to be, you know, I have the opportunity to move from assembler to working on a more complex project and eventually moving on to a construction management opportunity if that's what your professional goals are. So, you know, I think that, you know, understanding that there is a deep motivation, you know, both on the employer side to make sure that we're doing well as a business and doing well by our people, but also, you know, when we talk about, you know, those who are reentering, that there's, you know, it's a tough reality. to face, and there has to be some accommodation around, you know, mishaps and life, you know, which happens. But at the end of the day, using those things to, you know, to course correct and keep people on track. I think at the end of the day, our goal is to train people up, to provide skills, and to retain them for as long as we can. But in the chance that they receive offers, and, you know, more lucrative, more in line with their professional aspirations, we want them to be prepared to go on to those opportunities and be successful. I hope that answers your question.
Anybody else want to speak to that? Because I could also share a couple of things. Go ahead, Conrad.
So you say when someone messes up, they dip out. They don't want to deal with the consequences. That's fight or flight. So would you rather have them there fighting, or what, or flighting? So for that, I would just let them know that everybody makes mistakes, but show them how not to make it the next time. So a lot of that goes into training and having patience with the employees as well. Everybody mess up, to keep them, to retain the employees, I think Stephen said that a lot. Promotions, they have to have a feeling like this ain't a dead-end job. I have to see some type of moving up, or some type of raise or something like that. Have them in more meetings and feeling more important and has a bigger role in the job. When I make a decision with the team, I bring the whole team, and I ask for feedback and things that they think of, and a lot of the employees come up with great ideas that I wouldn't even think of. So I use them, so let's work together. We only working for money, so let's all make this money and do it the best way. So I feel like being included is a great way to have somebody stay. If they feel like they're really a part of it.
And the other piece I would add, Stephanie, is that with the public workforce system, we can fund for incumbent worker training. We can fund to help support all of the companies with on-the-job training. And also, once someone's been enrolled in our programs, we can provide support for retention as well. And we do that also through all of our community-based organizations. So there are about 100 organizations within our network, and many of which focus exclusively on supporting returning citizens. So for those of you who are in need of